Alright, round 3 of analysis of season 1 of the Tower of God anime. Today we'll look at episode 3 titled The Correct Door. Again, I want to iterate, the goal of this video is to see what was actually cut, what was enhanced with additions, and what sort of potential impacts it has for world building and storytelling of the series. It's obvious that things have to be cut for an adaptation, but this is less of a negative critique and more of what effects these cuts/changes have. This time the studio adapted up from half of chapter 11 to the end of chapter 15. Again, this is spoilers, so you've been warned. Now, let's begin. We skip the introduction of the door test for the lineup with the test guide Yellowy, and this is where we're picking off from chapter 11, and this is fine since it was unneeded fluff to get the setup for the next test. In the anime, we see our team just chilling outside, and we get the dialogue about the sky from Bomb. We get some extra stuff in the anime as Bomb clarifies that the stars in the sky are Rachel's dream, and a more important line that Bomb says is, "I hope they were visible from here." And Kun gets a little pushy about why Rachel would even care to help take care of Bomb for so long, which are great questions because we the readers wondered that for quite some time. Although Rock says that Kun made Bomb angry, Bomb doesn't know what angry is. Well, not yet. And these added lines were really good foreshadowing for Rachel's reasoning to help Bomb, and that was just to get her into the tower potentially. Also, the line that Bomb said about him hoping that the stars were visible from here is to indicate that Bomb hoped that Rachel doesn't need to go all the way up the tower to find her stars so that she can come back to him. But it looks like his hopes are crushed since you have to get to the top to find the real thing. All the in-between in these floors are just imitations. The webtoon was pretty similar in this case, but it was even more vague about why Bomb was talking about the stars since no one but the readers knew Bomb's backstory. So it's great that in the anime, Bomb actually explained this to Rock and Kun. Also, I actually felt that Rock laughing over and over again was kind of obnoxious. I love Rock and his comedic moments, but this seemed a little too forced in my opinion. In the webtoon, Rock just brutally stares at the strange things that Bomb was saying. I love the cut to Yu Han-song when Bomb says, "What if this test is really dangerous?" implying how dangerous Yu Ha-song is. I also like the added scene of Bomb and Rock just sitting on Rock while Rock complains about food. The neon plastic bag got so much character in the anime. I love the way he bobbed around and just moved in general. There were two big changes that the studio made for this scene with the plastic bag. Bomb was the one asking the questions and getting info instead of Kun, and we get the added scene of Kun snapping. In the webtoon, the neon plastic bag seemed more hesitant when he said no team screened before 4 to 5 minutes and added some ambiguity. In the anime, he just straight up gave the answer, pass it in 5 minutes. It doesn't really take away from the suspicion that Kun has of the plastic bag for using them as test dummies to see if it works. We see more of Bomb's trusting ability or trusting attitude in the anime because of this interaction, because Bomb was the one initiating these questions, Bomb was the one thanking the neon bag. In the webtoon, it was just Kun talking and Bomb just kind of looking. Also, the studio switched to Kun calling him a plastic bag, which in the webtoon it was Bomb who called him, and this is good because how would Bomb know what a plastic bag is? He's been in a cave. I don't think there was any like littering down into the cave for him to find out what a plastic bag is. And then the next part is all anime. In the webtoon, right before they step into the test, Kun looks back and thinks, "I really want to punch him." And the studio said, "Sure," and expanded this to show a sensitive Kun. It looks like more people know about what happened to Kun before he entered. I thought it was just maybe high rankers or FUG, but it looks like what Kun did to his family was common knowledge. SIU stated a long time ago in one of his earlier blogs, I'll try to find a link to it, but I don't actually remember which one, that the Kun family, or Kun's family, or his branch of the family, got kicked because of what Kun did, and that happened right before he stole the treasure vault and entered the tower, probably to reclaim the throne as the head of the Kun family once he became a ranker, and that was his motivation to enter the tower. But here in the anime, we see how raw the trauma is so early in his story and how he reacts. Normally we see a cool and collective Kun, but here he leaps forward and just goes for the kill almost, and it reminds me of Kun hopped up on the flame in season 3, so it's pretty refreshing and new to see Kun like this. I think it was an amazing addition to show this side of Kun. So chapter 12, it starts with a Kun flashback and ends with Rock kicking the random door open. In the anime, they took this flashback and put it in the front of the episode itself, as well as laced it while Kun was taking the door test, which was a great idea because although the flashback worked well at the beginning of the chapter in the webtoon, the flashback serves much better to be at the beginning of the entire episode, in this case to show the trickle-down effects of the situation on Kun now. The changes made to Maria saying Kun's name instead of Kun's mother was nice, and we actually see the manor/castle and the dirty Kun. One thing that confuses me is that in the webtoon, Kun went to go steal the briefcase after he got kicked out, but he seems to be getting kicked out with the briefcase, so some continuity issues, but this is a brand new flashback, so it's whatever. The cut from Maria reaching out to his mom holding him down shows a lot about what Kun does in this test. It's really great. I really like the speech bubble panels in the webtoon, and it was a great use of the medium for the webtoon, and the anime showcased how they use the best of their medium to depict the same feelings that Kun feels while he takes the test. The clock looks so different, and I like it and I don't like it at the same time. What I'll say is that the clock in both cases serves the same point, to tell us that the test needs to be completed in 5 minutes. In the webtoon, we have what is a pretty standard clock in our world, very normal to have the quarters bigger. The 12, 3, 6, and 9 are all bigger. What's suspicious is that the 5 is bigger than the other 7 numbers. From the way Shibusu explained the reasoning in chapter 13, I felt that time doesn't really move in the same way it does on Earth as in the tower, because the only thing that was noted is that clock moved in 5-minute cycles, which is normal in our world, but maybe it's not normal in theirs. The clock in the anime has an amazing aesthetic with the gears. There's only one hand on this clock, unlike in the webtoon, where only the minute hand moved, and throughout the episode, throughout the chapter, the clock hand moves fast and makes a full completion. There's only one hand on this clock, unlike the one in the webtoon, where in the webtoon, only the minute hand moves. But throughout this episode, the clock hand moves fast and makes a full completion in 5 minutes. Again, both inherently tell us the conditions for success, as well as the screaming of the teams that went past 5 minutes could be heard to everyone else. The takeaway here is the line that Yu Han-song says, "Within 10 minutes, find the real door and open it," where the real door only exists before 5 minutes. The anime cut out a lot of the intros of Yu Han-song from the webtoon, where Yu Han-song says that he's just filling in or whatever, because it's not really necessary to add that. What's interesting is that they added in the anime a line by Kun saying, "What is he doing here?" foreshadowing the inevitable line hopefully they add of Ren telling us later in the season that it's weird for someone as talented and of a genius as Yu Han-song settling to be part of the testing on the second floor. I don't understand the reasoning behind showing the floor below of the dead regulars, as the screaming serves the same purpose, but it's a nice touch that adds the shock factor, so I don't really think it's needed. The clock moves in the webtoon, but it doesn't really correspond with the right time in the pocket, if that makes sense. By the time it's 3 minutes and 15 seconds in the pocket, it only progressed on the clock in the webtoon to 5:35, and that's not more than 50% through the day. It should be past 6 o'clock, since the 6 o'clock point on the webtoon clock would correspond with a time of like 2 minutes 30 seconds. So the clock in the webtoon doesn't accurately depict what it's supposed to depict. At least in the anime, the hand moves accordingly to the intended time limit. So as we get closer to the 10 point, we're getting closer to the 5-minute mark. Rock running around and showing a tantrum geeks, and plays well in part with the first test of the second floor, where Rock says he doesn't like thinking as he runs around in frustration. Kun's flashback interlays with Kun thinking, and seeing the closeness of the plastic bag in Kun's thoughts are so powerful and show how troubled and worried Kun can get. Although he's smart, he has the repressed feelings of trust, especially because of the betrayal he felt with Maria. The line they put in the anime, "I'd forgotten until now," is kind of misleading again because Kun doesn't forget, and again this didn't happen that long ago. The best transition I've seen in the anime, and this is just enough for me to praise the anime forever, is the transition where we see Maria in Kun's eyes to Rachel in Bomb's eyes. Oh my goodness. Again, this was enough for me to praise the anime and the studio so far. Like, they nailed this down. What a way to tie in Kun's backstory into him trying to trust the innocence and the presence that Bomb holds, and the lengths that Kun goes to in season season 2 because of this feeling Kun has about Bomb. It's beautifully done. A minor change, but in the webtoon the pocket showed the time 5 minutes and 1 second. In the anime the pocket showed 4 minutes and 59 seconds when Rock opens the door, and here the anime looks a little better because it keeps it under the 5-minute mark. But that's a little minor thing. The effect of Kun's face after Rock answers is refreshing because of how dumbfounded Kun is in the moment. And we're about halfway into the episode now, and we've only covered 1.5 chapters in the webtoon. I really love that they didn't rush through this because it's good to see Kun struggle here, to understand how he thinks and just how important Bomb and Rock are for him. Although some may say that the test is lackluster and simple, the purpose of the test is to show how a team can work together, and even intelligence isn't enough on its own. Alright, chapter 13. In the webtoon, we start with Yoo Ha-sung congratulating the team for passing to the other testing area, and then we transition to, at the end of the chapter, the other testing area where only 3 regulars passed the first test of the second 4. That was kind of like the Battle Royale style, where they're all in the wheat fields. I like the response that Rock gives in the anime, that it was instinct, over the webtoon response of to guess, because it makes Rock's bluff sound a little more believable. I'm glad the studio took out the argument part between Kun and Rock and just went with Yoo Ha-sung clapping, because the real argument is between Kun and Yoon Ha-sung. Rock just got tired of waiting. There is no argument. Rock's not going to listen to Kun if he doesn't want to. With the neon plastic bag that knew about their princess issue, it makes it more reasonable that Yoo Ha-sung also knew about this issue. With the webtoon, it felt weird that Yoo Ha-sung knew what Kun did, because I assumed when I first read it, it wasn't known to many. But it's interesting that Bomb is almost like a mediator here in the anime, as he gets more lines and looks innocent to Kun. I'm glad that the bag was mentioned, not the plastic bag, but the briefcase was mentioned by Yoo Ha-sung, continuing the tease of this briefcase again, as it plays a pretty big role in the crown game. The studio removes a good section of the other teams taking the door test. The whole priest team was funny but not needed, and I liked the change they made to Laura's team, where they take out the bedsheet, or where they take the bedsheet / pillow hostage, because that's actually the only way to get him to help, not to just beat him up like the team does in the webtoon. The way that Shibusu just tells the answer to the door test is okay, I guess. I felt that in the webtoon, Yoo Ha-sung asking how Shibusu figured it out gives Shibusu more prestige because he got acknowledged by the test admin, but whatever. The role of Shibusu in this test is to tell the audience all the information that was given instead of a narrator or Yoo Ha-sung to tell, and it gives Shibusu credit for his intelligence, which the point came across well in both. I liked Bomb asking about the princess as they're walking to the next stage, because that's something Bomb should ask about, especially since Libero told Bomb to be wary of Kun. Also, Kun hoping Bomb for the best, and Bomb's bright and happy expression is everything that Bomb is this season. He enjoys being there for Rachel because, again, he belongs to her. This added scene in the anime was great and really cements Kun's backstory and his desire to help Bomb. The part we lost was Yoo Ha-sung making the comparison of a medicine to the hint and his love for coffee, but I think we saw how much of a poison it was, or how much of a poison it could be to someone as untrusting as Kun. Finally, we get the scene with the 3 regulars from Quant's test, Androsi, Rachel, and Ghost. I really like the cloaks that they have on because they don't in the webtoon and only get cloaks when they join the crown game, but this adds a lot of mystery because you can't tell who they are. So chapter 14 in the webtoon starts with Quant getting scolded, and then we get to the beginnings of the first round of the crown game. I like the jittery Quant because that's how impatient he is. I don't like the wording Quant said that it was an untimed deathmatch when it was clearly a 30-minute free-for-all, but that might have been just mistranslation somewhere. I think the biggest change here is the fact that Quant is probably playing the innocent card by saying that he's not sure if there was a irregular or jihad princess in the test, because in both ways here, the flow of information is tied to Yoo Ha-sung, and the role of all of this is to get Bomb and Rachel to meet in the crown game, which is still accomplished. Also, like, if Quant in the webtoon knew about irregulars, then why did Libero not know that Bomb was irregular by checking the catalog? Because Libero is a type to actually read the rules and whatnot. Quant doesn't care about that. So this kind of gets rid of that ambiguity in the webtoon by not even addressing it. Without saying death, the head chopping motion that Yoo Ha-sung does in the anime was enough to convey the threat level that Quant potentially put both of them in. In the webtoon, we get a change to Yoo Ha-sung chilling with his hair down, but in the anime, it just continues the scene in the same setting, which is fine because there's no need to get that transition in. And we get the amazingly looking pocket that glows when you make a call, and it looks amazing. I like the change in color in the anime of the light to yellow to match Yoo Ha-sung because it looks so clean. The background for the waiting area was done really well to add depth and complexity instead of the yellow box in the webtoon. The soda scene allows for Bomb and Shibusu to naturally meet, although the whole money mode threw me off. I didn't know that existed, but this interaction is okay, but it lacked a lot of energy in the webtoon, to be honest. The main point is to show that both are ordinary, except we know Bomb isn't. And in the webtoon, we learn about Shibusu's reason for climbing. He made a promise to his friend to make it up the tower, which we still don't know who that friend is, and if the anime didn't add this, what is Shibusu's reason for climbing? Also, we lose an important line by Shibusu from the webtoon when he says the most humble turn out to be the scariest, alluding to the power and the monster of a regular that Bomb will become. Another thing we miss from the webtoon is Cocoon going to use the bathroom, where he takes some stuff out of his briefcase. But here in the anime, he stays with Rock and Bomb the whole time until the start of the crown game. So what happens now? Like, where do those things go from the briefcase? They never got out. We get the introduction of the crown game, and the chibi scene, or the little character scene, did a really great job to show the conditions for winning and losing. Also, this scene alludes to the full summary of this entire crown game arc. Bomb sits on the throne while Cocoon and Rock defend, and then they lose when Bomb will eventually get off the throne. I thought it was done really well. They changed the time limit per round to 5 minutes instead of the original 10 minutes in the webtoon, which is understandable because we will probably get the other 4 rounds of the crown game next episode. So 5 minutes each is exactly enough to fit in an episode like in real time. Everything else about the explanation looks good. It seems like Rock's good smell is as good as Bomb's senses, as they both pick up on the strength of the other testing team. We lose the panel about the knight and the yellow chick about not participating in this first round, which is fine because they were omitted in the last episode as well. And we get Laura sleeping instead, which is, Laura is awesome, so it's fine. And chapter 15 is the last chapter that was adapted into this episode, and it's also the first round of the crown game. I wish they went with the line that Anak says in the webtoon. Serious, he said. Well, that depends on you, with her veins popping. But her saying, I'll go out no matter what, is fine, but she doesn't actually go out until round 2, so she's kind of contradicting herself. Khan just gets taken out, and this entire sequence was adapted really well. I like the addition of Rock slamming the button after the timer, because it seemed pretty weird that Rock didn't want to fight in the beginning and actually listen to Cocoon in the webtoon. This shows that Rock in the anime just missed the timing to get a chance to fight Anak, and gives our main team plausible deniability. The priest getting his hand completely wrecked, and then the windstorm that Anak produces with her hook were amazing additions. I wish we had more of Anak's cockiness, especially the grin as she just collapsed this team to the ground by herself. When she sits on the throne in the webtoon, she has a swagger of superiority with her pose and her tail wagging, and it looked so badass. But in the anime, she's just chilling in the chair. I hope we at least see this swagger in the next episode, but we'll find out. Although we don't get Cocoon's thinking from the webtoon where he says, we're in trouble, she's too strong, it's overwhelming. But the win that she, caused kind of shows the same intensity here. All in all, great additions by the studio for these moments, and we have our last addition where Bomb just says Rachel at the end. I think it would have been more impactful if he just stared without saying anything, because this gives away to the readers, but it's okay. Cocoon's backstory was done so well, and this first round of action in the crown game was amazing. I'm excited for the next 4 rounds of this. Again, I want to point out, I don't hate the choices that the directors made for this episode, because again, it's really hard to choose what is taken out and what needs to be added to make the story hold. Just my thoughts on this episode. That's all for the video. If you get a chance, subscribe to get access to these reviews every week. My social media can be found by searching Inspirational on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. Shout out to my designer. You can find his work on Instagram at JatinV_photography. Shout out to my editor. You can find him on Twitter at YoungObesity. See you all next time.